One thing you have to remember about the debate over Britain's membership of the European Union is that Britain's always felt about the European Union a bit differently from other countries. For many countries in Europe, the European Union is a promise, it's a pledge never to go to war again, to integrate more closely and hang together as a continent. Britain's always felt a bit apart from that, a bit different. It thinks about it as a club. It's always weighing up the costs and benefits. Are the costs really worth the benefits, whether economic or political? So let's talk about the benefits of being in the European Union. I'd summarise those benefits in terms of openness and influence. Openness is being part of a big single market of more than 500 million people, the biggest single market of consumers in the world. Our businesses get to trade freely with all the countries across the European Union according to the same set of rules and regulations. They don't have to change the design of their products to meet specifications in individual countries. Now, economically speaking, that kind of openness, integration, we know helps growth, helps productivity, helps us make more with the same number of people, increase our living standards as a country. We also get more other kinds of openness, social, cultural integration, makes us more bound up with our neighbours. We're always going to be part of Europe, we're always going to be very close to all those countries across the Channel, and being part of the European Union helps bind us more closely to them, as I say, not just economically but socially and culturally. There's also an influence that comes from being part of that larger club, not just within Europe, trying to affect the direction of Europe, but also from being in the global stage, representing Europe. So we have more influence in Washington, in China, because we're a strong country, a strong leading member of the European Union. But when we think about the costs of being in the European Union, well, many of those costs are actually the flip side of the benefits. So we have integration, we have openness, but with that openness comes a loss of control in lots of different ways. So our businesses have to follow rules and regulations set in Brussels by the European Union, not always the rules that we would choose. So we lose control in that sense. We've lost sovereignty in other areas of our law from being part of the European Union. Westminster doesn't always get the last word when it comes to what we should be doing. And there's also a loss of control when it comes to our borders. That single market means a free movement of not just goods and money, but also people. In fact, there have been a lot of people coming into the UK from other parts of the European Union, more than anticipated. Lots of people in Europe want to come here, maybe more than any other country, because they learn English as a second language, they find it more accessible, and they see more opportunities here. And partly because it was underestimated, that immigration, it's caused strains for local authorities, socially, culturally, also in terms of school places and public infrastructure. So in a sense, some of those costs of loss of control have become larger since the 1970s when we first made that choice. When we made that choice in 1975, it seemed like the economic benefits in particular were clearly outweighed the costs of being in the European Union. Now I think the trade-off's a bit more difficult because we've had so much immigration, and that's posed political and social problems, even as it's produced an awful lot of economic benefits. But also because the euro has been created. You've got a set of countries who've decided to all share the same currency, and they're learning, they've had a lot of trouble with the eurozone crisis, they're learning that they've got to move more closely together, to integrate more closely, not just in economic terms, but politically, in order to make that system work using the same currency. They have to have more similar tax rules, more similar banking systems and regulations. Now, as they move more closely together, there's a risk that we outside, not using the euro, will feel like we're second-class citizens, that we're part of a club that we're not really calling the shots in anymore. And that's something that people say is a problem for our future membership of the European Union, just as this greater level of immigration is a problem right now relative to the 1970s. So in a way, that some of the costs of being in the European Union have got a bit larger since 1975. But the costs of leaving have also got larger, because we've been in this club all this time. If we decide to leave, there's all the uncertainty and adjustment costs that come with finding a new way of dealing with Europe, deciding a whole new set of rules and regulations and trading relationship with Europe, but also with the rest of the world, because we've become a different kind of country. In the long term, we adjust, and our economy would adjust, other parts of our country would adjust, but in the short term we would face those costs. So if you do want to leave, if you do feel strongly about getting back control of our nation, you have to believe that those benefits are worth the short and medium costs of all the uncertainty that would come with leaving. It's become a much more difficult choice, but it's a very important one, and no matter what happens, we will be in Europe whether we're inside the European Union or not.